sure that when merchants use Shopify, they have no restrictions, no limitations. And so when you talked about Shopify Unite, and there are really two components of the Unite announcements today. One was, of course, more flexible, more scalable, more high-performing version of Shopify than ever before, where merchants can customize their storefronts. You look at the new Netflix store that launched a couple weeks ago on Shopify using our online store 2.0. This is the first time that Netflix ever had an online store, and they were able to customize a store that was specific to their needs. You look at the infrastructure announcements that we made with some of the storefront APIs, and companies like Allbirds creating new mobile apps that unlock exclusive deals, and of course now allow consumers to try on shoes using augmented reality. But then we also talked about Shopify Checkout. And you and I have talked about Shopify Checkout for a long time, for many years, because the biggest flash sales on the planet all happen on Shopify. But what we wanted to do on the checkout side was really extend the customization capabilities to checkout and Shop Pay, so that if a merchant wants to build specific experiences, donation requests, they want to do upsells, they want to do buy now, pay later, everything is now available from Shopify. And if they want to sell 300,000 pairs of sneakers in a few minutes, they can do that.
So this is joyous, because everybody has a dream. And the dream can be realized because of the man you're looking at and his incredible team, Canadian team. I'm going to say that because that's how I always think of you guys. Now, one thing I told my wife Lisa is that you know that this man knows every single business that has been helped by Shopify, but I'm going to let you off easily. Shopify sold trainers. Tell me about them.
It's interesting that you bring up that particular store, because actually that's a great pandemic story. Here you have a Toronto-based social enterprise that works directly with farmers and makes their chocolate from scratch. During the pandemic, they were hit hard. They had a physical store in Toronto, and using Shopify, they were very easily able to move online, but also do things like curbside checkout, and also use touchless payments. But really, I think Shopify, Jim, we are this rare breed in that we were this wonderful pandemic store. We helped small businesses find resiliency and survive the pandemic. And now we really have fully transitioned to being this global recovery story as countries open up. And I think you and I agree that the center of gravity for commerce has permanently shifted online. And every merchant, every brand, every small business now requires a retail operating system, and they need to do multi-channel natively. And that's what Shopify is best in the world at. And in 2020 alone, over 450 million people checked out on Shopify. That's about 8% of the global population. And we're now looking at about 9% of all e-commerce in the US is going through Shopify. And remember, we are a proxy for independent small businesses. And when you see the consumer confidence numbers that came out this morning, you see that consumers are voting with their wallets to buy from these independent brands.
One of the things I like is I was going back and forth with Mark Zuckerberg today, and he is so proud of his relationship with you to help small businesses grow with him. I mean, you kind of cracked the code if you got Zook telling me he likes working with you.
It's pretty amazing, whether it's our relationship with Facebook or a new partnership with Google or some of the things we announced with TikTok and Pinterest. We really believe that the future of retail is going to take place in the modern day town squares. And consumers are spending their time on Facebook, and they're spending their time on Instagram and YouTube and Google Maps. And it is our responsibility. We want to build a future-proof commerce system to make sure that all those integrations are easy for merchants so they can reach all of their consumers wherever they may be. Now, in particular with Facebook and Instagram, the fact is the first time that Shop Pay is now available to retailers that are not even on Shopify. And we think that's going to make it much easier for commerce to be conducted in a decentralized, independent way. And we're very proud of our partnerships.
Right, can I tell you that there are still people who don't believe that you invest in companies, that you are just some sort of factotum? They don't get that you have heart and soul. I'm going to give you another chance because of Unite. Just how many businesses have you saved? How many businesses have you helped create that wouldn't exist?
Well, it's kind of amazing. I mean, we talked about capital being such an important part of building a business. And actually, we've now given out more than $2 billion of cumulative capital since we launched Shopify Capital. And it took us 4 years to give out the first $1 billion in just a quarter to double that to $2 billion. Now, again, this is capital that otherwise these small businesses would not be able to receive. But remember, we want to democratize the opportunity not just for small business, but also for developers. And one of the most profound and impactful announcements that I made today on stage at Unite was the fact that we've now reduced the rev share for developers to 0% on their first $1 million. That means that if you build an app on Shopify, your first $1 million is all yours. And that is really important because we believe in this idea of building a real ecosystem. And we want thousands and tens of thousands of developers building on Shopify. Last year, our partners generated about $12 billion in revenue, which is about 4 times what Shopify made. And that's what we mean when we say we want to create more value for them than we capture for ourselves. And that economy of developers and partners on Shopify keeps growing.
Okay, so now that the pandemic hopefully is winding down, we know there are issues. Are companies less in need? I mean, have we gotten to the point where you no longer feel where the companies aren't as, let's say, strapped because things are starting to really open up?
Oh, no, not at all. What we are seeing is that entrepreneurship is now part of the global recovery story. Small business is going to lead the charge in bringing our cities and communities back to where we were pre-pandemic. What I think is also really important to understand is that businesses have now had to be forced to be resilient. So there is no more, like the idea of saying I'm an omni-channel or multi-channel retailer today is like saying I have a color TV. Every single retailer, every business needs to sell multi-channel across every single service possible. And I think, again, when you have the supply side of these great brands building these great products and selling everywhere, and you have the consumer demand saying we want to buy, we want to vote with our wallets to buy from independent brands, you have one of the most important new emergence in entrepreneurship maybe ever. I think we're living in a very special time for small business, and I've never been more bullish on entrepreneurship than I am right now.
It wouldn't be a special time if you and your team didn't do this, or if you and your team had sold out for $100 when we saw each other for $50, and there were so many companies who said, I'll pay you double again. And you knew, but more important, you had pride, and you were never going to let this one go. I want to thank you for everything you've done, Harley Finkelstein, for changing every millions of people's hopes and dreams into businesses that make money. No charity, they make money. Thank you for coming on Man Money.
Thank you.